back, everyone. So season 2 of The Wheel of Time has wrapped filming, and we've gotten little drips of info about it, including this fire casting for Avienda. Seriously, doesn't she just exude Avienda energy? It's coming off of her in waves. I am so excited for next season. But season 2 is still a ways off. I don't think we're going to get it until 2023. So we're obviously still obsessing over and parsing season 1. And to that end, I thought I'd make a video about my 10 favorite moments, or they're not all moments, but they're my 10 favorite things from season 1. So, given that I'm going to be talking about season 1, obviously spoilers for the entire first season of the Wheel of Time TV show, and I'll also be touching on stuff from the first and the second books, so Eye of the World and The Great Hunt, so spoilers for those books. And, okay, at the end, I'm going to talk about something that I realized while I was putting my list together that I think might explain some of the disconnect between me, a person who has read the books and loved them. I've read the books many, many times, and I also truly loved the show. The disconnect between people like me and other book readers who felt, let's say, less than enthused about the show. The people that, we have been calling the Bookcloaks. But in order to discuss that, I will end up talking in pretty vague, but still spoilers, but very vague spoilers about the entire series. But I'll let you know when that time comes. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into it.
Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy, babe.
Alright, so this list is going from 10 to 1, as most top 10 lists do. But I'm just going to be upfront. For some of these, trying to decide which one I liked better was pretty hard. These are all things that I absolutely love. So, with the exception of the number 1 thing, which is a real standout for me, the rest of them actually, okay, looking at my notes, number 2 and number 1 are like they're standouts. The rest of them, there isn't really much difference between them. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes things make sense in my head and then I say them out loud and they sound like nonsense. Anyway, okay, that having been said, we begin with number 10. Liandrin! Oh my god! Kate motherfucking Fleetwood. I could never have predicted before the show came out that I would love Liandrin. And I don't just mean that in a love to hate her way, although that is definitely true. She's an excellent villain, but having read the books, Liandrin is a character in the books that I just hate her. Like, I do love to hate her, but I just hate her. I have no sympathy for her whatsoever. I don't care about her backstory. I don't want to know more about her. I'm excited when she's on screen, or on the page, I guess, because that usually means that there's some bad shit about to go down, but I don't care about her. But in the show, holy hell, there's nuance, hot nuance, as they say on Wheel Takes. And I'm assuming it's the same as the books. I did say spoilers through The Great Hunt, so I'm assuming she's still Black Aja, and so she's evil, and she's going to portray characters that I do really care about, so I don't like her. But I care about her. She's not a walking caricature of evil, Like, when Karini died, she seemed to feel real grief and real anger, and perhaps even there's some remorse there if what some people suspect about her having had a hand in Loghain's escaping is true. There are hints of a backstory between her and Moiraine that intrigue me to no end. I want to know more about her, and I love that. Number 9 on my list, I wrote down the Lan and Nynaeve Prayer scene. But really, it's actually all the stuff that we get to see of their budding romance. But in particular, that moment, where they share their personal, private rituals with each other. It brought tears to my eyes the first time I saw it. And I've actually cried watching that moment in a few times on subsequent viewings. In the Eye of the World, their romance is in the background. Once you know to look for it, it's there and it's pretty clear. But so many people miss it the first time around. And without going into spoilers beyond The Great Hunt, Nynaeve and Lan's love story is... It's a romance in the series that I am deeply invested in. But in the beginning of their story, when they are falling in love, we mostly don't get to see it. We have to infer a lot and fill in the blanks in our minds. And so seeing scenes like this one, it felt like a gift. Like, that may sound melodramatic, but I burst into tears when I was watching when Lan said his iconic, I will hate the man you choose because he is not me line, because I don't really know why. Just those lines are some of my favorite dialogue from the books, and actually hearing an actor playing Lan say them out loud, I don't know, I just got emotional. But this moment, this earlier moment between them, it felt like seeing something new. Like I was invited in to see something intimate and personal, something that actually showed me something about each of them individually, but also about them together and why they are drawn to each other. It was just beautiful. Number 8 on my list, Dana. God, Dana. The actress who played Dana, Izuka Hoyle, I've called her out before. She was so amazing. She was charismatic and sexy and likable. She was incredible. But oh man, the writers were so clever naming her Dana and having her be in the episode that Tom was introduced in. They had to know what they were doing, because they knew us book readers would see that and make that connection and go, "Oh, she's Dana, so she's a variation of Dina," and be completely caught off guard. Because yeah, I did not see that coming, and I love that. One of the things about watching an adaptation of a book series that I've read so many times is that it's not going to be very easy to surprise me. At least not with plot points, right? Like, not only do I know the plot, or plots, plural, pretty damn well, I know what to look for. Like, I know to listen for things like Aes Sedai evasiveness, or, the way dark friends talk about the Great Lord of the Dark versus how other people talk about the Dark One. I know to look for things like signs of channeling or whatever. But the writers, the actor, they got me. She was so great. Like, I really, really liked Dana. I felt for her. I cared about her. She was vivid, which feels very, very true to the Wheel of Time. I talked about this actually in my last video about side characters, how Jordan was so good at breathing life even into the smallest characters that he created. Having a character like Dana, who shows up for one episode only, having her feel so three-dimensional, having me feel like I know her and I like her and I want to know more about her at the same time, that feels so very Wheel of Time, so very Robert Jordan to me. And then when she turns, or not turns, I guess, but when she reveals herself, the shock I felt, like, damn. And Izuka Hoyle, she played it so well. Number 7 on my list is the Lan and Moiraine dynamic. In the books, I care very much about Lan and I care very much about Moiraine, but I care about them separately. And, I believe in the books that they have a bond, they have a shared mission, but if you asked me, like, before the series, do, Moiraine and Lan have a significant or close friendship? Like a relationship outside of their shared goals, their shared mission? I don't know what I would have answered, to be honest, because it wasn't really something I thought about. It wasn't a concern of mine when reading the books. I just didn't care about it. And I don't mean that as a slight on the books. None of this is a slight on the books. I love the books a lot. But there's just a lot going on in the books. And it's not like I read the books and thought that this was something that was missing. I just never thought about it. It wasn't an absence I felt. And, of course, this comes with a qualifier that other people might have picked up on things that I missed, but I just didn't think about or see things in their relationship beyond their shared goals and their bond, the water bond. But of course, they've been together for 20 years, and so the show showed me a beautiful, loving, non-romantic relationship between Lan and Moiraine, and I loved every moment they gave me, especially that moment from episode 7 that I've talked about at length multiple times, where Moiraine tells Lan that she likes Nynaeve. That moment still, even having watched it as many times as I have, it still makes me cry. I think in the books I would have confidently told you that they loved each other, but the show is, well, it's showing that to me and showing me that they have a real friendship, and I love seeing friendships on screen as much as, sometimes even more than I love seeing romances. Number 6 on my list. I'm just going to read from my notes because this is what I wrote. I wrote, Moiraine says the thing. I know I can't be the only one who, when we heard Rosamund Pike as Moiraine say those iconic words like, the wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, I can't be the only person who got goosebumps and tears. I haven't listened to Rosamund Pike's audiobook. For those of you who don't know, Rosamund Pike has narrated The Eye of the World for an audiobook, and I've heard amazing things. But I happened to be in the middle of a reread when I found out about it, so going back and listening to Eye of the World felt weird. But I am very, very excited to do it, because hearing actual Moiraine read Moraine's lines, I know that's going to break me because, okay, like there's a clip online you can find, I guess I'll link it below, of Kate Redding, who is one of the narrators of the audiobooks, along with her husband, Michael Kramer. There's a clip online of her reading the Weep for Manetheren speech, which, if you don't know, in the audiobooks, whenever anything is told from a male point of view, it's read by Michael Kramer, and if it's told from a female point of view, it's read by Kate Redding. And strange as this sounds, because it's Moiraine talking during Weep for Manetheren in the books, it's told from, I believe, Rand's point of view, so it's Michael Kramer reading it. It's Michael Kramer reading Moraine's lines, and he does an amazing job, as he always does, but hearing Kate Redding, who, like, to me, Kate Redding is Moraine's voice, like, actually reading Moraine's lines. I've watched that online, like, that clip online many times, and I've cried every single time. It's amazing. I can't imagine what an entire book of that is going to feel like. Like, okay, I love Kate Redding and Michael Kramer. They, to me, are the original actors, actually, of these roles. Like, they do such an amazing job. So to me, Rosamund Pike, Zoe Robbins, Daniel Henney, all of these amazing actors, they're the second people to play these roles in my mind. But, you know, just like I've seen Wicked, the musical, I've seen it in multiple countries, played by different casts. I've seen it in multiple languages. I'm excited to hear Rosamund Pike's take on the book. And, okay, all of this goes back to that moment. Hearing her voice, the voice of Moiraine, say those lines. As a longtime fan, that was a special moment. Number 5 on my list, Nynaeve explodes. Twice. This also, it was something I wasn't expecting. In Eye of the World, we learn that Nynaeve can channel, but we don't see it. And we don't really learn how powerful she is until book 2. So I didn't expect to get to see it in this season, but it was so incredible. And it felt so true to her character to have both moments come as a result of other people being in danger. That is very, very Nynaeve. Although, okay, if I'm honest, I'm holding out a hope that we will learn that this isn't her first time touching the source, because I love the story from the books, that her first time channeling was to heal Egwene. I prefer that than her first time being to heal Lan, because as much as I love that their romance, I just find it that kind of cliche? Reductive? I don't know. The first time she channels is because of a man that she's falling in love with or starting to be in love with. I don't know. Whatever. I prefer the idea that, like, no, Nynaeve just hates suffering, pain, disease, and any suffering, pain, or disease, and that any suffering, pain, or disease is enough to get her to the point of channeling. But, okay, with that caveat in place, I loved this moment. I loved seeing her anger push her to that point in the cave, and again, in the ways, actually. In fact, I think I prefer the moment in the ways, because that one, to me, it epitomizes what I see in Nynaeve that I aspire to. How her response to her self-doubt, her anxiety, her fear, her response to those things is to do something, anything. Now, as someone who knows her whole story, I know that her response is not always right. She's very impulsive, but I don't know, I guess because I'm such a passive person, I often feel that action is better than inaction. So I see this moment and I think, oh gosh, she's so brave. And so while neither of these moments happened in the books, they both felt so true to who she is as a character that I just loved them. Number 4, I'm still just floored that we got this. We got the Weep for Manetheren story. And a song! The song! Okay, so true story about the song. I work at a center for children with learning disabilities, and one of my students is a nonverbal student with ASD, and a couple of days or maybe like a week or so after the episode, I was in a class with her and she was having a meltdown, I guess. And I've learned, because she's been my student for a while, that if I like rub her back and sing a song, that can help soothe her when she's in that sort of state. And because of how much like I had been thinking about Weep for Manetheren, the only song I could think of in this moment was Weep for Manetheren. And so I sang it to her, and I was rubbing her back, but then I started patting her back in rhythm to the song, and it's become one of her favorite songs. Like, I will start to sing another song that, you know, is more appropriate to a child of her age, and she'll shake her head and start patting me rhythmically to let me know that she is wanting Weep for Manetheren. Okay, that tangent aside, I can't believe that we got this moment. I was on record as saying we wouldn't, because it's a very long monologue that tells a story about characters that aren't in the actual story. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite passages from the books, but I didn't think it would make the show because I didn't think it was necessary. So when it happened, I was floored. And it didn't just happen. It was incredible. Not only did we get a banger of a song, and if you watch some of the behind the scenes footage, actually, there's another verse that they wrote that I actually like even better than the one that made the show. But not only do we get the song, we get Rosamund Pike really delivering and selling the story. I honestly believe that no other, okay, I shouldn't say no other actor, because I'm sure there are other actors who could have done this, but a lesser actor would have tanked the scene. It would have been boring, but it's not. It's Rosamund Pike, and because of that, and because she's so good at her job, it's captivating. Number 3 on my list, Lan and Nynaeve, they kissed! And more. And like, okay, I waited so long for that, like decades. And I know that there are people who feel like the show rushed their relationship, pushed it further than it is in the books. And okay, like I'm not gonna tell you how to feel or whatever, but I also gonna tell you that I think you're wrong, because as I've said many times, at the end of the Eye of the World, Nynaeve freaking proposes. She proposes to Lan, and then he confesses his love for her and delivers the most romantic lines ever written. A kiss, sex, neither of those things are as intense as what happens at the end of Eye of the World. Okay, that aside, I waited over 20 years to see Lan and Nynaeve kiss, and it was freaking perfect. It was loving and gentle and passionate and romantic and everything that I would ever hope for that moment to be. And I love Nynaeve and I love Lan, and I love seeing them together, and everything about it. I want to just live in that moment. It was glorious. But that leads us to my number 2, Soiraine. That's the ship name for Moiraine and Siuan. I kind of called this from the trailer, though. We saw their fingers touch on the oath rod, but I never expected their relationship to be a central part of the story, and it is. The Moiraine and Siuan love story feels more central to the plot than the Lan and Nynaeve love story. But not only does it feel central, it adds to the stakes, kind of, like, because obviously, okay, the fate of the world is at stake, but it's kind of hard to engage with something that epic, that massive. We need something intimate and personal to make us care. And so we have this deep love story between Moiraine and Siuan that is, it's almost in conflict with their ultimate goal, which is to save the world. They're trying to save the world, but saving the world means that they don't get to be together. And so it makes me care more about them succeeding because of how much they've had to sacrifice for their goal. Like, okay, I know I should care more about saving the world, but that is such a massive concept, it's hard for my brain to conceive of it. But their love, their sacrifice, I can understand that, and it makes me care more. So, even beyond the gloriousness of the queer representation involving 2 women around my age, one of whom is black, and all of that is glorious, I'm not even going to try and pretend that I didn't love all of that. But beyond that, I think this love story adds so much to the narrative. It makes the stakes something that we can hold on to, that we can understand. We can wrap our heads around it. I want their sacrifice to have been worth it. Okay, let's move on to my number 1. And this one shouldn't surprise anyone who knows me, but it's the Nynaeve Moiraine dynamic. I feel like the show completely nailed that. Every scene they have together feels like it was ripped right out of my head. Like, okay, so here's a little secret about me, about my YouTube channel. I had been thinking about making a YouTube channel for several years before I made one, but I didn't know how to do it because I didn't want to put my face online. I just didn't, I'm a woman, I'm a black woman, I'm a black gay woman, I'm a black gay plus-sized woman. Like, I know what happens when someone like me says something that a certain type of person, or actually that's not mince words, a certain type of man hears me say, someone like me say something that they don't like. They won't try to engage with what you actually said. They will attack you personally. I know this from personal experience. It's happened to me more times than I like to think about. But I had no one to talk to about the Wheel of Time, and so I wanted to make a YouTube channel, but I was trying to figure out how to do it without showing my face. Then, 2 YouTubers that I followed, Nameless and Daniel Green, released videos about Nynaeve. And they were great videos, not knocking their videos at all. But neither of them talked about what, to me, is one of the most important things about Nynaeve. her insecurity, her lack of confidence, her imposter syndrome, and how all of that is manifested in her relationship with Moiraine. And so I just gave up trying to find the perfect solution on how to do YouTube without showing your face, and just went with what you are seeing now, which is literally just an emoji from my iPhone. But I made a few videos first, but the actual reason that I finally made my YouTube channel was because I needed to make this video about Nynaeve and get it out there so it was part of the conversation. It's one of my earliest videos, so it's kind of painful to watch, but, I was still figuring out how to do the whole YouTube thing, but everything in that video is still what I think, and if you watch that, and then watch the show, you see it all play out there. How every time they interact, Moiraine is so easily able to cut Nynaeve to the core. And I don't mean that to say that I think Moiraine is ever being cruel or bullying or whatever. I think everything that she says to Nynaeve is something that Nynaeve needs to hear, but I just love how I can see on the screen everything that I see on the pages of the books about how Moiraine makes Nynaeve feel small and insignificant and incompetent, and how she tries so hard to assert herself with Moiraine, but Moiraine is able, with barely any effort, to just say the exact thing that is going to hit Nynaeve in her vulnerable places. So many people, when they read the books, I feel like they miss this. They see Nynaeve being angry and aggressive towards Moiraine, and they're like, why? Why is she so unreasonable? What's wrong with her? And because of that, I was kind of afraid that the show would also have that tone, that Nynaeve would just seem to be an unreasonable, angry woman. But no, they seem to have the same understanding of her that I do, and I love that people watching the show are seeing the Nynaeve that I see in the books. And so, yeah, that's my favorite. Okay, so at the beginning, I said at the end of this video I was going to talk about what making this list made me realize about the disconnect between me and the show haters. And as I said, this part is going to have spoilers for the entire series, but it's really, really, really vague spoilers. Like, I'm not going to hit on any specific plot points, really. So make your own decisions, proceed at your own risk. I noticed when making my list that all of them were about the female characters. Well, Lan, but only really Lan, how he relates to certain female characters. And like, obviously, I'm a woman, I'm going to identify with the female characters more, but it got me thinking. In talking about this series, one of the ways that I've talked about it is to say that I think Robert Jordan wrote it as a Trojan horse. You read book one, and it's very familiar. It's a story of a chosen one, a boy and his boyfriends. Boyfriends. Sorry, a boy and his boyfriends. That would be somewhat unfamiliar. But okay, no, it's a boy from a small village, and other boys also from that small village who are chosen to save the world, and hell, the most chosen one even has red hair. It's a really familiar tale. But then you hit book two, and I guess the women are kind of significant to the story. And like, as you go on, there's a book where the main protagonist practically disappears from the story, and another one where another one of the main boys literally just does not show up at all. I think Robert Jordan intentionally did this. I think he intentionally tricked people who wanted to read a familiar story about chosen boys saving the world into reading a series full to the brim with amazing, nuanced, sensual female characters. Now, obviously, I'm reading into his intentions, so, take that with a massive grain of salt, but, like, the stuff that I'm about to say is fact. What I just said is my perception. What I'm about to say now is fact. This is borne out in the numbers, in the analysis. If you look at word count, POV chapters, etc., as the books go on, women come more and more to the forefront. I'll link to the article that I'm using here in the description, but there's an excellent statistical analysis of the series where you can see charts like this one, where you can easily see how the word count that is given to female characters dominates the series from book 5 on. Female characters just get more time, more focus, more perspectives than male characters. This isn't my perception. This is fact. This is numbers. What I think might be the disconnect between the haters, and I'm not talking about people who just didn't like the show. I'm specifically referring to the type of hater who is saying things like, the books are about the boys, they are the main characters, why are they focusing on the women? The three boys, they're Treveran, they should be the main characters. The show is just trying to be woke, so it's centering women. I feel like those are people who fell for the Trojan horse, and then read the entire series and never realized that it was a Trojan horse. They read the first book and maybe the first few books and decided that they were about the three boys, and somehow managed to read the entire series not noticing that women became at least as important, if not more important to the story that of the Wheel of Time as the books went on. And Rafe always said that he was telling the story as a whole. He's not telling the story book by book. And if he's doing that, and he's looking at it from a perspective of having seen the whole thing, then what he and the rest of his writing team are seeing is a story that is pretty evenly, like if you don't separate it book by book, it's pretty evenly divided between male characters and female characters, and actually the women kind of edge out the men. And it would be weird to start the show and make the audience think that the show is about 3 boys, when in actuality, if you take the series as a whole, it is very much a story, it's about them all. Sorry, if you know, you know. But, okay, it's about all of them, and centering the women is actually pretty damn accurate to the books, if you take them as a whole, which is what Rafe always said he was doing. Also, I'm just going to point out, if you do an analysis of the show by gender, it's pretty evenly divided, with Rand getting the most screen time. It's that thing of when you're used to having everything, and suddenly you don't have everything. You still have most, but you don't have everything. You now suddenly feel like you don't have enough. Or it's that skewed perspective thing. They've done studies on this. If you are making a movie and you have a crowd scene, and you put 50% men and 50% women, the perception of the audience is that it's mostly women. There's too many women in the scene. What they have found is, I think it's 17%. You make the crowd 17% female, and the audience perceives that as equal, which is insane. I think that might be what it is. It's pretty evenly divided, but because we are not used to seeing so much female presence, especially in this genre, it feels like it's too much to some people. So, okay, anyway, those are some of my thoughts on this, that some of the haters are people who didn't notice the shift in focus in the books, and so now they are suddenly being confronted with it in the show. Okay, that out of the way, let's get back to the main topic of this video, which is favorite moments from the first season of the show. What are your favorite moments? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my channel and you want to support me, please consider checking out my Patreon. I say this every single time, but honestly, my patrons, it means so much. Your support really just makes this whole thing possible. And I just have to sincerely say thank you. So, thank you. And with that, I am going to end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!